Good morning, good people from St. Camilla's. This is your youth minister, Pablo, and I'm here today with the gospel reflection for June 2nd. Today's gospel reads, Some Pharisees and Herodians were sent to Jesus to ensnare him in his speech. They came and said to him, Teacher, we know that you are a truthful man and that you are not concerned with anyone's opinion. You do not regard a person's status, but teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or should we not pay? Knowing their hypocrisy, he said to them, Why are you testing me? Bring me a denarius to look at. They brought one to him, and he said to them, Whose image and inscription is this? They replied to him, Caesar's. So Jesus said to them, Repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. And they were utterly amazed at him. The word of the Lord. In today's gospel, we hear a great example of the polarization that existed during Jesus' time. As we face today, we live in a very polarized society. And why do I say this? Well, the question that Jesus gets clearly is to corner him or trick him. Should we pay taxes is the question that Jesus gets. Well, if he answers yes, you have to pay taxes to the Roman emperor. He betrays his fellow and oppressed Jewish countrymen. But if he says no, well then the Roman authorities that are watching could apprehend him. How many questions in society today do we hear that polarizes us and puts us in a corner? One thing about this gospel that I often hear is a wrong interpretation of this text, in that Jesus sort of creates two different worlds. What do I mean by that? Well, he says, repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. What I often hear is that Jesus creates a dichotomy between religion and society. And this is clearly a wrong interpretation of this text. Jesus is not saying that there are two authorities, a religious authority, God, and a human authority, government authorities. So what is he saying when he says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God? Well, first, Jesus hardly ever answers a question that is placed on him in a this or that format, right? So when he's asked about the forgiveness of sins, they ask Jesus, should we forgive our neighbor 7 times? What does Jesus say? No, 70 times 7. When he's asked, what is the greatest commandment? He says, actually, there is 2. When he's asked, what are the grounds for divorce? He says, actually, none. So this question, again, is no excuse to the rule. When he says, should we pay taxes? We never hear the affirmative or the negative. He says, what belongs to Caesar, give to Caesar. What belongs to God, give to God. Instead of thinking that his answer creates a world of 2 spheres, we should think that he places our commitment to God in a higher platform. He's saying, if you give back to Caesar his property, what belongs to him, how much more should you give back to what belongs to God and give back to God what belongs to God? If you respect human law, how much more should you respect God's law? And what a relevant question for today in what we're facing. The gospel has us truly reflecting on the relationship between religion and political affairs. Clearly, Jesus is saying they're not separate. He's not saying abide by human law as they exist out there and abide by religious law as they exist over here. He's saying if you follow human affairs, how much more should you be concerned with religious affairs? And what is it that belongs to God? What is God's law? For starters, the dignity of every human person, the value of human life, the truth that we're all created in God's image. And that belongs to God alone. And in today's society, in what's going on today, we are truly hearing throughout America, the fact that the life of George Floyd was taken away and that belonged to God alone. And so the protest and the injustice of all this is truly a reflection of God's law being broken. And so we pray for the end of racism as we know it today, as it exists in human law, and that we may be truly reigned by God's law, the law that we are all created equally in God's image. Amen.